Oops, they did it again. Those prize numpties at the Bank of England who were asleep at the wheel during the pandemic, printing money and allowing inflation to get out of control, have now admitted they've got their predictions for the British economy completely wrong, changing their forecasts of a year-long recession to the biggest upgrade of growth in history. We've had years of this from hardline intolerant Remainers like Alistair Campbell, who last night disgraced himself with a pack of lies on national TV, including a claim that the UK Parliament could somehow change EU laws when we were in the bloc, not true, and that our economy has shrunk by 4%. Take a listen to him repeating that nonsense here.
If you've had Brexit already taking 4% of the 4% chunk out of the economy, which means £40 billion less for public services, then you suddenly discover that this crazy commitment that you made is actually going to hurt your trade and economy even more.
Well, let me tell you that he sexed up that dossier. Campbell failed to point out that the highly contested figure of 4% was a projection, which, like so many of the other projections, will doubtless be completely wrong. In 2016, the likes of Campbell and what I'm calling the expert class predicted that if Brexit happened, there would be a flight of capital, mass unemployment, a recession and a collapse in the housing market. Delightfully, none of that came to pass. The voices of doom continually predicting the demise of Brexit Britain are continually being proved wrong. And it's worth remembering that the UK has enjoyed the highest rate of growth in the G7 for the last 2 years. If this is what Brexit disaster looks like, bring it on. What is so dangerous about this, in my view, politically motivated negativity around Britain is that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you keep talking a country down, then down it will go. The likes of the Bank of England, the OECD and the IMF have been wrong more times than Dean Gaffney on Mastermind. Why are we still listening to them? Put Gaffney in charge. If they had taken a more cautious, or even, dare I say it, optimistic view of the British economy, that would spark investment and business confidence. Instead, they're happy to participate in the lie that Britain is on a path of long-term decline. Well, once again, they're eating their words. Perhaps they should take off their Brexit blinkers. I'll be honest, I'm beginning to agree with Michael Gove. Doesn't happen often, must be a leap year. I've had enough of experts, particularly after 3 years of a pandemic shambles in which COVID modelling predictions for the virus were about as accurate as a Gary Barlow tax return. Could it be magic? No, Gary, just a dodgy accountant. Relight my fire. I've got some receipts to burn. So why did the poor COVID predictions matter? Well, because nonsense projections of 500,000 deaths from the virus, as suggested by the philandering Prof Neil Ferguson, sent the government into a total panic and shaped what would become the disastrous policy of lockdowns, imprisoning perfectly healthy people in their homes for a virus non-fatal to most. It was junk modelling which saw this Chinese Communist Party-inspired policy of lockdowns rolled out 3 times over at a cost of £500 billion of printed money, and a policy which has led to a poorer, angrier and sicker population, with a wrecked economy, damaged kids and an NHS waiting list of 7 million people. Worth noting that excess deaths are currently through the roof, a figure they were obsessed with during the pandemic, but now that it's not COVID, they don't care. The expert class, being so wrong about so much, has good historic precedent, including the disastrous plan to shift everyone onto low-fat diets in the 70s, 80s and 90s, getting people off red meat, eggs, butter, cheese and cream, the food that your dear old grandma ate when everyone was thin. All of this great food, these natural ingredients, were replaced with junk like pizzas, pasta, bread, sweetened yoghurt and myriad other horrific processed carbohydrates. Grandma was right all along. I should start a campaign to bring back lard. Delicious. Now, this huge dietary shift led by so-called experts, the expert class, but many in the pockets of both the pharmaceutical and food industry has supercharged the obesity crisis and made us sicker than ever. The experts, eh? Science, like expert, has become another four-letter word in recent times, with the ridiculous idea that the science was somehow settled on COVID. No, it wasn't. It's just that detractors were silenced. Or that the science, I should say, is settled on global warming. No, the science is not settled on global warming. But it's this elite class of so-called experts, fuelled at times by their compromised or even corrupt evidence, who are having such an impact on our country, on our lives and on our future. So, the dozy Bank of England are in part responsible for the extent of inflation that we're now suffering, and of course the billions that were printed during the pandemic. Sage are responsible for the enormous damage caused by what, in my view, was a failed attempt to stop a virus. Remember, follow the science as they covered our faces in those worthless, pathetic masks? And nutritionists and doctor experts have presided over an explosion in obesity and type 2 diabetes by demonising animal protein and saturated fat and getting us all onto carbs and sugar. And it's now experts that are likely going to lead us into a dystopian meat-free hell with rationed air travel, freezing homes, no car and 1 cup of tea a day if we're lucky, all in pursuit of net zero, with no debate, no discussion and certainly no votes, exactly like the pandemic. The experts have proved themselves to be anything but. They are illiberal, undemocratic and all too often just plain wrong. It's time to bin the boffins. We'd be far better off with idiots in charge.